Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here. Today we're going to be reviewing The Satan Pit, which is of course part 2 of the Impossible Planet storyline. Now this was a Patreon request from the 5th Doctor, one of my top tier patrons, as his favorite Doctor is the 10th Doctor, which is kind of weird when you think about it. But it's been a long time since I watched this one. I mentioned this when I reviewed the Impossible Planet. I have not seen this story since between like 2007, 8, 9 probably. I haven't gone back and watched it in a long time. It's not one I'd ever really cared for. I didn't hate it. I didn't even dislike it. I just didn't care for it. It was always that kind of, it was the one kind of middle road story in series 2. Because most of series 2 for me is either really good or really bad. Although I didn't mind my rewatch of Idiot's Lantern when I watched it. It's still not that great, but it was tolerable. Had moments. But I enjoyed the Impossible Planet a lot, and I mentioned in that review that I was wondering if the reason why this story doesn't hold such a high opinion in my memory is that it suffers from what a lot of modern Who suffers from, where part 2 doesn't live up to part 1. Because that happens a lot to varying degrees. And that is the case here. Part 2 is good. Its biggest flaw is there's too much padding in it. It's very obvious that part 2 was going to run short, so they had to write a lot of extra dialogue. So there are scenes that are very dialogue heavy that don't need to be. The scene when the one guy, the security chief, is holding him off and he dies is way too played out. When he doesn't make it and he's, I did my best and I know you can't save me and do this, and that goes on too long. I made note of it when it was happening. I'm like, this is going on too long. They're glorifying it a little too much. And don't get me wrong, I like the character, so it wasn't really bothering me, but I was making note of it. The scene when the Doctor is talking with the woman that he's down there with when he's lowering on the rope, and they sit there and chat. You know, they chat for a while before he unhooks himself. That goes on longer than it needs to, I feel like. It feels, again, stretching the episode, padding it out. The Doctor's speech at the end when he's down there with the Beast. And I don't even hate all of it. Sometimes I can't tell what the hell he's saying. Like at some point he says, oh, so-and-so tried to tell me years ago. It's like, you didn't tell me, so-and-so told me. And I can't make out who he says. It says like JLBWHO or something. I can't tell who he says. I'm thinking maybe it's referencing something from Classic Who, which I love when it does, but I can't hear it. I've rewound it and listened to it. I can't make out what he's saying with the sound mixing there a little wonky. And then the speech just goes on when he's basically talking out loud to himself, which the Doctor does that sometimes, but it's just, there are a couple little bits of the speech I like when he talks about, I've seen false gods and big gods and other gods and demigods. I like that little bit, but then that bit when he's like, if there's one thing I believe in her. And I'm sitting there going, like, come on. I believe in her. Like, how do you even know she's going to be set up to do what she needs to do? I mean, that's having some real faith right there, since this episode deals with faith. So all of that I just talked about really pulls the story down. It's still great. It's just not really great like part 1 is. I don't even know if I call part 2 great. I call it good. It's good. It still has a lot of good stuff going on. I love Murray Gold's incidental music, which I mentioned in part 1. His incidental music fits the mood and the tone perfectly and helps accentuate them. It has the right piece of music playing at the right time that fits what's happening. And it works really well. I was constantly making note of, I like the music here, I like the music here, I like the music here, and here, and here, and here. I love that. There's a couple points really where I'm like, that's just the perfect music you could have there. I like all of the cast. All of the cast are doing good. The one guy who's possessed is doing good when he's all panicky, and then when he's possessed by the creature, he's doing a good job with that. I really like the captain. The guy playing the captain is really good in this, because it explains in part 1 that he's the acting captain, because the actual captain died on the way there. But he's doing a good job as the captain, even if he doesn't think he is. Because you can tell he comes from blue-collar roots, the way he acts, the way he talks, the way he moves, and how unsure of himself he is in command, you know. He seems like he comes from a very blue-collar background. The way the actor plays that character of him having to step into this leadership role and be very unsure of himself, but he's actually doing a really good job because everyone else is quite comfortable with him being captain. I really like that performance, and that's really down to the writing and the directing and the actor. It's a good storm there. Everyone else is doing a good job. I like the one guy, the one that is kind of in charge of the Ood. He's pretty smart, but I like that we get to see some flaws in his character, because when they're down in the little ventilation shafts, he gets a little panicky trying to get into the next areas. Maybe he's claustrophobic. I like the fact that it doesn't address that and have him say he's claustrophobic, but he could just be claustrophobic, or he could just be someone who doesn't deal with a panic situation well. But he seems like he's holding himself together pretty well when they're not down there. So I think perhaps he's claustrophobic, because he's constantly, we need to move to the next section. And I like that little, because it's realistic. It's very three-dimensional. You know, human beings are flawed. So it really gives his character a little more of a real feel to me, that it's something that it doesn't even address and come out and say, but you can infer from that he could just be claustrophobic and in a panic. I like that. I like even the woman who's down on the planet with Tennant. You know, she has her own little insecurities that it hints at. I enjoy that. I do love, I already talked about how much I love the set design in my review for part 1. I really love the space station set design, that industrial look it has with the color yellow to it, which, because I always think of yellow as an industrial color, like, you know, bulldozers are yellow, cranes are yellow, construction vehicles are yellow, unless you're watching G1 Transformers and they're green. But other than that, they're yellow. If you're watching G2 Transformers, well, I guess they're still green because it's just a G1 cartoon. But if you look at the G2 toys, they're yellow. So I always think of that's a perfect fit for that. I really like that set design. I like at the end when Tennant is running away as everything's kind of going to crap, and he jumps and he lands and he actually ends up against the TARDIS. When he looks up and realizes it's the TARDIS, that laugh he does is perfect. He has that ha ha ha, this laugh he does. It's this perfect David Tennant 10th Doctor laugh. Like, yes! You know, and I love that laugh. It is just, it's perfect. I actually rewound it and watched that one part again because I just loved that laugh he does there of him getting his TARDIS back. It's that kind of, hello, old friend. I really enjoyed that. I like how everything is kind of, you know, there's a lot of action going on at the end. And again, the music is perfect for it when you're seeing the stuff on the screen. I find it kind of weird that it's that easy to shoot a windshield out on that thing. I mean, I don't know how strong that bolt gun is, but it goes right through this, you know, this glass that's supposed to keep, you know, them separated from space. It goes through it pretty easily. And then the fact that you can unhook their belts that easy and the guy just gets out, he just, click. That seems a little too easy to unhook a belt. I want a belt that's more secure than that. I want a belt with a roll bar, and I've seen roller coasters that have better protection than that does. All she has to do is kind of click and he's gone. I'm like, I think I'd want a little more security on my space rocket. And then, of course, the shot of him being sucked toward the sun. It looks a little ropey, to be honest. But it's Doctor Who, so I'm willing to forgive that. The CGI for the Beast itself looks dated. I think it's pretty good for 2006. It definitely has that the devil depiction look to it. It looks like the devil. But by today's standard, I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, that's some mid-2000s TV CGI right there. It's still fine. But I'm looking at it going, they could touch that up sometime in a collector's edition, you know, collection box set. I'd be cool with that. Like I said, I enjoyed the episode. I loved the little bit at the end when the Doctor is on the TARDIS with Rose and he's talking with the people on the ship about different things. There's that part of it's the camera work. I like that shot of Rose and the Doctor standing there with his hand on the control. Something about that camera shot I really enjoy. The green light coming off the TARDIS. Series 1 and 2 really had a lot of green light in the TARDIS, more so I think than Series 3 and 4. But it works really well there. I like that. Who are you? And he's just like, oh, stuff of legends. I love that. I love that line. And how even he doesn't know all the answers. He's not sure what that creature was. He's like, we won. We beat it. That's all that matters. I enjoy that. There's some really good dialogue in this story. Again, it's just too much. Those are my main complaints, are just that it feels padded out, like it wasn't going to hit its runtime, and they had to lengthen the dialogue. And it just feels so obvious to me that that's what's happening at more than one point, especially there when Tennant's talking to the creature. Also, right there when Tennant's doing that bit when he's talking to the beast, it does these weird camera cuts when he's talking. Like it's here when he's talking, and then it's here when he's talking, and then it's here when he's talking, and then he's here when he's talking. And that's jarring. It's jarring. It's extremely jarring. I made a note of that too. I'm like, this is... I have an easier time jumping from live action to animation in some of the 60s stories. That's really, really jarring. And then that speech of his, most of it I don't really care for. A little bit of it I like, most of it I don't really care for. So a little padded. But for the most part, I definitely enjoy it. It does not live up to part one, though. Part one is definitely easily the stronger part of the two parts. But that's kind of par for the course for Modern Who two-parters. Usually part two doesn't live up to part one. But still good. Still really enjoyed it. So, The Satan Pit and The Impossible Planet. What do you think of these stories? Comment down below and let me know, because I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications, because that helps me out. That helps me grow the channel, helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and it's free. Hey, can't beat that. I also have a Patreon if you would like to contribute to what I do. If you enjoy what I do, there's a link to that down in the description below. I want to thank one of my top tier patrons, the Fifth Doctor, for this Patreon request and for his continued support. I want to thank Stephen Crane for his continued Patreon support as well as all of my other patrons. I appreciate each and every one of you. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me down in the description, and a link to my Amazon wish list, which I update regularly as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.